Hi there. Okay. I was talking about discernment, and honestly, I did not piece this together. So, I'm trying to think. It was one, honestly, that God wanted me to speak on, and this one is a really hard one for me. So I'm going to continue with this one. But so with discernment, and I know I've talked about this in the past. I almost don't want to repeat some of the things I say, but it is important. Discernment is a very important gift that we need to have, and especially when you are trying to figure out people and when you're trying to make life decisions. Even and it could be life decisions regarding your health. It could be life decisions regarding moving, jobs that you take. Um, when we're talking about relationships, when we're talking about people, figuring out, like, sometimes um, when we are in relationships with people, and I'm talking about all types of relationship, platonic, romantic, family dynamics, and when we are dealing with different people, and sometimes when certain things are coming up, especially when we are dealing with people who we trust, when we are dealing with people who we think who are being forthright, we think they are being forthright, and then all of a sudden you start to see red flags. And it is very important that we pay attention to those red flags, especially when you are dealing with people who you trust. So, when you're dealing with people who you trust and people who you like and people who you admire, and you think nothing but good of them, and then like, you're seeing certain things, you're seeing certain patterns, certain information is coming at you, and from like the perceptions and the patterns that you are seeing, that are coming out of them. And they're not flattering. But because you like the individuals, but because you have respect for the individuals, you don't want to believe what you're seeing. But in most cases, what you are seeing is real. I know that I have given so many people. I'm one of those people, really and truly. I am one, and even to this day, I am one of those people. I will give you chances. If I see a red flag and I'm seeing it, and there are, with discernment, this is, like, you'll see certain patterns, you'll see certain things, and if I see a red flag, and I'm seeing it, and God is, like, He's giving me this discernment to see, I usually will give people the grace and say, okay, I'm seeing this, but I don't want to believe it. So I will continue to hold them in the light that I have been holding them in. But there is a danger in that, because depending on the relationship that you have with them, and depending on the dynamics, and what is involved, it could cost you. It could cost you. So, but I have done that sometimes. And so what I would do is I would, would hang on or stay on, and then the red flags would come up again. Usually, 3 or 4 times. I usually, before I just say, what, this really is real. Like, it was real when I first saw it. It was real when I first noticed this. It was real when I noticed that. Now it is real, and now I have to break off, because when you're seeing, especially when you're seeing a lot of patterns, like, when you see a pattern once, you want to give people grace, because sometimes, what, it could be just, a bad day. It could just be a mishap. It could be just, it could, like, be just something that really isn't relevant long term. But so that's why I do like to give the grace, and not, like, just go on that one red flag. But when, red flag turns into 3 and 4 red flags, then I know that there is a problem. I know that these red flags are saying that this is an issue with this person. What they're saying to me is not adding up. How they're behaving with me is not adding up. now it is time for me to sign off. So when you are discerning personalities, when you are discerning people, and when you are dealing with them, it is very important to take into effect the red flags when you see them coming up. And like I said, the first time you may want to give the person the grace because you don't know what could be going on in the world, in their world, and what they're dealing with. But when you see a number, I do like to see, because if I'm seeing 4 or 5, if you're seeing 4 or 5 red flags, there is a problem. Like, that this is not a mishap. This isn't a one-off. That um, th- this is real. Like, what is going on is real. But when, say, for example, like I said, that, just judging people. So I'm going to give an example, and like I'm thinking, okay, say, this lady, they're at a restaurant. This lady's at this restaurant. She just comes out of the restroom, and she comes out of the restroom, and as she walks by, her skirt is in her pantyhose, or in her panties, so to speak. So part of her skirt is in her panties. So half of her dress is up, the other half is down. And so she's walking through the dining area, the dining room of the restaurant, and you have people who are there, who are, dining, and they see her walking, and they notice that her dress is in her panties and she didn't take. They don't say anything, like they say nothing to like to correct the situation. So you have the busboy, and the busboy, like he has all of the dishes in his hands. He's taking them back, back to the kitchen, and just by chance he looks, and he sees that this lady's dress is up in her panties. So he hollers, because that's all he can do, because now she's walked further away from him. And so he hollers and he tells the lady to, to take her dress out of her panties. Like he's correcting, he's helping her. And so, but he hollers it. So he hollers it across the dining room, because, he's close to the kitchen, and he has this tray of stuff in his hands. And so, but he doesn't want to see her walking around like that. And so he hollers it to her that, what, she should, take the dress out of her panties and whatnot. And so then you have these people then judging this person and saying that, oh my gosh, he's so rude. Like, he had no right screaming that out. He could have at least went up to her, and he could at least, but they saw her. So they saw her walk by, but they didn't address it. Like, they were too coward. They were too cowardly, or they were cowards in, letting her know that she should take her dress out of her panties. They wouldn't bring that correction to her. But they're judging this person and saying that he shouldn't have hollered across the dining room to tell her that, to bring that correction to her, to bring that change to her. And then that was rude of him to do it. But wasn't it even more rude of them when she walked by that they couldn't address? Like, they could have walked up to her. So now they're judging this person, and they're judging, and they're not discerning. They're not using their discernment at all. They're not in any way applying and saying, okay, well, this guy had a tray of dishes, and he couldn't, like, they're not thinking, okay, why did he do what he did? Like, why didn't he go up? Like, they're not thinking, why? Why did he do what he did? Why did he do it in the way he did? Why did he do it in the fashion he did? They didn't discern his behavior at all. They prejudged him. They prejudged him. And what's worse is that they had a chance to correct and to help her out in that situation, and they didn't. So they were cowards, and he did something that they wouldn't do. But then they are now he's a villain. So he was trying to help her, and in the process of trying to help her, he became a villain, and they didn't use their discernment. And that's what happens in a lot of cases. A lot of people judge people They don't discern why people behave the way they behave. They don't, and especially in a case like this, where what he did was to help her. He brought correction, he brought change to her situation. He helped her out, and they didn't. They didn't. But in a lot of cases, people will not discern what people are doing. They just judge people on their behavior. And so in most cases, they would say, like, this guy was rude, he had no right, what kind of person. Some may even go to the manager and complain, even though they saw this woman with her dress in her panties, and they would not, go up to her and say, take this out. So yes, the woman was embarrassed, but I bet you anything that she was more thankful to him for doing what he did than to all those people who just sat there and didn't bring any correction. So I mean, like, it also goes like discernment. We also need to use discernment when we are dealing with people, and try not to judge people just based off what we see. And so, like I said, we make assessments as soon as we see people. When we see people do certain types of behaviors, we just judge instead of trying to discern, instead of trying to understand where they are coming from. We just judge, we just assume. And assuming and judging is not knowing someone. Assuming and judging is not understanding, and that's not discernment. Discernment is actually stepping away from a situation and evaluating it. And that's what discernment is. It's really, like I said, it's like sniffing something, like you see a dog sniffing to see what it is that he is smelling. And discernment is like looking at a whole bunch of pieces of a puzzle and trying to put them together and figuring out a way of how to put them together. Discernment is about assessing a situation, and it is not judgment. And so people often say, oh, I can just tell what a person is like. That's not, no, you can't. You can't tell. None of us can tell. I don't care how prophetic you are. You can't tell how a person is. On the prophetic side, you're getting revelation, which God is revealing to you. And don't get me wrong, with discernment, God is playing a part in there too, but he's giving you the sharpness and he's giving you the tools to be able to make an assessment of what it is you are being presented with. So it's almost investigational when we are talking about discernment. Now, when we, discernment also comes with health. And I say health. Health is such an important thing because discernment has saved lives. Just being able to sniff that something is off, sniff that something is wrong with our health or with the health of a loved one has saved lives. And I've seen that in my life as well. Now, I'm going to just talk about this. When when COVID happened, like, okay, with my weight, I how can I put this? I normally would pre-COVID. I normally would fluctuate between 10 to 20 pounds. So, like I had my parameter for how long I would allow, I'm looking at the time here, for how long I would allow how many pounds I would allow myself to gain before saying, okay, you know what, normally 10, but sometimes 20, depending on, work and whatnot, but normally 10. So 10 to 20, I would give myself that kind of flex. And so when COVID happened, because I was working out, like going to the gym, working out and everything, I was at that 20 pounds. So I had pre-COVID, just as COVID happened, I was at that 20 pound, at that maximum that I would allow myself to gain weight. And so couldn't go to the gym. We know what COVID was like, couldn't go to the gym. And so I was at that 20 pound of, where I gained weight. And, then my mom, like her dementia was getting worse and couldn't go to the gym, and I was working as well, and just so many things going on in my world. And my drug, my drug is food, and in particular, my drug is pastries and cookies. And so, yeah, that was my thing. And I know that a lot of people during COVID gained weight. Well, they did. And I was one of those. So I probably gained close to, so like I said, I was at the maximum of what I would allow myself to gain weight. And that was my healthy point, but at the heavier side of my healthy point. So I had gained close to 50 pounds at that. So, I mean, had I at least been at the lower, the lower of the 20, it wouldn't have been as much, but I had gained close to 20 pounds. And so I gained not 20, close to 50 pounds, close to 50 pounds. And I couldn't work out, and I had all the stress, like I said, in my mom, what she was going through and everything. That was comfort for me, and that was what was getting me through the pastries and everything. And then after that, my mom, eventually, she went into a nursing home and everything. And so God was then speaking to me, and he was saying, okay, you need to take this weight off, like, because it was a lot. And so he's like, this needs to go. And so when I left, and he kept saying that to me, like, it was a constant. And I knew that what he was saying, it was a command. And I knew that it was coming from a dire place. Like, I discerned, like, I didn't want to ask why. Like, I didn't want that weight. I didn't want to carry that weight. That was not something that I've walked around with. This is not a weight that I walk around with. Like I said, 20 pounds. So then the 20 pounds, which I normally would take off. So I had the 20 pounds on top of the 50. So like that was 70 pounds. That was too much. So when he said, okay, you need to, we need to bring this down here. And so by the time I left Canada, I had lost 35 pounds. So I had lost 35 pounds when I crossed the border over into the US. So I knew I wanted that off. But I did feel that he really wanted that off. Like he was really, really over me on getting the weight off. And so in the US, so I got the weight down, like I said, to 30, I took off 35 pounds. So then I was 15 pounds in shot to the 20, to, like just being at the high end of the 20 points or 20 pounds. So 15 pounds. So then I was in Atlanta. In Atlanta, I took the 10 pounds off and then 10 pounds more. So in Canada, at COVID, right when COVID started, I was at the 20 pound, right at the cusp. So I had lost 10 pounds. Like I had lost the 10 pounds, so put me back to 20, and then I lost 10 pounds more. And so then I lost as a result, yeah, so 25 pounds, whatever. Then Christmas came. Christmas in Atlanta. And so I was eating food that I never ate before. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be eating food like this. And so I ate, I gained it back. So then I was at my weight, my COVID, my cusp, pre-COVID weight, right at the cusp of COVID. So I was right there at the 20 pounds, right there. So a happy place, but at the heavier end. So I was at the happy place of my body, but at the heavier end. So, like I was still, I felt good that I was like at a healthy weight, but still it was on the heavier side of what I was comfortable with and used to. So God was saying, like after that, when I came into New York City, God said, you have to take that off. you got to lose that 20 pounds. And I knew it was command. Like I knew. And I knew that if I didn't listen to it, like I could sense it, I was discerning. This was discernment here. So I could discern that if I did not listen to what he was commanding, that was then what he was commanding was then going to become a warning. And I discerned that just, by how he was speaking to me. Like, I didn't know, like, what he was talking about health wise. I didn't know. All I knew was that he was saying, you've got to take that 20 pound, like, you've got to go lower. So I did, in New York, and I, took the 20 pounds off. And, so I was at my happy place. I was at, like, my natural weight at, the lower end for my height, which is 5'7". So I was at that natural, like, at that, I was happy. And I was happy. And I just knew. And I could feel it. And he was saying, I want you to take more off. And I didn't want to take more off. I really did not want to go lower. I did not, because that was my happy place. I was happy at that weight. I liked that weight. It's a good weight for my height. And it, I knew he was, and he was just at me. I had no rest. I had no comfort. I had nothing. And so then I went lower, like, I went 10 pounds lower, and I'm like, okay, God, this is good. I like this. Okay. I'm fine with this. I'm good. Like, I liked 10 pounds heavier, but I like this too. And he said, lower. I'm like, no. He's like, you gotta go. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go. Like, now I didn't want to go lower because, I like a little bit of meat on me. And, at this point, there wasn't going to be any meat on me. And I'm like, no, God, no, I just don't. No. But he kept at me. And I knew. And at no time did he warn me. He commanded me. But had I not did that, I knew a warning was going to come. I felt it. So I felt that he was saying, I want you to be at your optimum in health. I knew that this was a healthy place that he was taking me to. I knew that. And, but he wouldn't, he was, working with me, trusting me that I would listen to him by simply doing what he said as a command. And I did. So it never got to the point where it became a warning. I didn't want it to become a warning. I didn't want to be scared. I didn't want to be frightened. And so I just said, okay, even though I didn't want to do it, and especially with the last, that last bit of weight that he wanted me to lose, I didn't want to lose it. I really didn't, like, for my reasons. I didn't want to go as low on the scale as he wanted me to, but I did. And I am happy. God knows what he's doing. God knows how he's instructing us. God knows. And after I did it, I was happy. I was really, really happy. And like I said, at my happy weight, like like my normal weight, I like that. But I actually, like, I'm like, thank you, God. Like, like, I actually like this. Like, I actually, like, I like the weight that I am at now. But he took me lower than what I was used to, and lighter than what I was comfortable with. And the weight that I was very comfortable at that weight, and that was a healthy weight for me. But I knew when he was saying that, I knew he was saying it for regarding my health. I'm healthy. And, like, I am healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. But I want to remain healthy. So that's why I just listened. And that was the discernment that I was picking up. Like, he was telling me, but he wasn't telling me why. Like, he wasn't giving me a reason as to why he wanted me to continue with the weight loss, even after I reached my happy, the weight that I was at, like my normal weight.